Lieutenant Mira Kale stepped off the shuttle with the quiet confidence of someone used to change. The long glass corridor of orbital station Helios stretched out before her, filled with travelers, officers, merchants, and drones moving in steady lines. She walked among them like any other new arrival, carrying a single black duffel and wearing the standard navy blue uniform of the Terran fleet. No one turned to look at her twice. No one saw anything unusual. And that was exactly what Mira wanted. Helios was louder than she expected. The sound of thousands of lives blending together echoed through the high ceilings. Announcements played from overhead speakers, advertising ship departures, maintenance warnings, and diplomatic briefings. Crew from different divisions crossed paths in every direction. Human, alien, synthetical, moving in organized chaos. Mira kept her steps even as she passed a line of cadets who whispered among themselves. It was easy to tell who the newcomers were. Their eyes were wide. Their movements were unsure. Mira let them think she was one of them. She kept her face calm and polite, letting her expression seem open but distant enough to avoid conversation. She arrived at the reception desk, where an officer scanned her ID. The officer barely glanced at her before directing her toward the logistics wing. Everything was happening exactly as it should. Exactly as she had requested, Mira walked through the station's curved corridors. She listened to the busy hum of the environment as though it were a kind friend she had missed. Despite her calm face, her mind worked at a steady rhythm, observing and calculating. Every hallway, every guard rotation, every security drone's idle pattern, she took in all of it. The logistics command office was located in one of the quietest parts of the station. When she stepped inside, she found two people arguing over supply reports. Both stopped talking the moment they saw her. "You must be the transfer," the older officer said. He had tired eyes and a badge that showed years of service. "Lieutenant Myra Kale, right?" Mira nodded. "Reporting for assignment, sir." He seemed relieved, almost too relieved. "Good. We needed another set of hands. Your record looked clean. Desk work shouldn't be a problem for you." Mira offered a small smile. "Not at all." Just like that, she was assigned a station. A desk in a quiet corner. A terminal with outdated software. A pile of open tasks on her first day. Anyone else might have complained, but Mira sat down without hesitation, scanned the first request, and got to work. Her coworkers looked at her occasionally, curious, but not enough to ask questions. She kept her posture relaxed. She breathed slowly. The appearance of a woman trying to settle in. A woman seeking a fresh start. Hours passed. Mira completed task after task with quiet efficiency. Her speed surprised the officer in charge, who thanked her more than once. She always answered with the same gentle nod and a simple, "happy to help." By the end of her shift, she had already mapped out the entire logistics system in her mind. She knew where errors were hiding. She knew how to streamline the supply routes. She knew which scheduled maintenance would actually fail in a week, but she said nothing. Not yet. On her walk back through the station, she listened to conversations around her. She heard a group of engineers discussing missing patrol drones. 2 drones had vanished near the outskirts of the Helios perimeter. The engineers blamed faulty programming, but their voices held quiet concern. Mira paused beside them for only a second, long enough to file the information. Way before continuing, she rode a lift to the residential ring. There the air felt warmer, and the walls were painted in soft colors to make the place feel less like a space station and more like a home. Her assigned quarters were small but clean. A narrow bed, a desk, a simple viewport showing distant stars. Mira stepped inside, set down her duffel, and locked the door behind her. Then she froze, not from fear. From habit, she checked the room carefully. Not because she expected danger, but because her training made it impossible not to. She scanned for hidden devices, for irregular shadows, for anything out of place. Only after confirming everything was clear did she sit on the bed. She opened her duffel and pulled out a small metal cube, the only personal item she carried. She set it on her desk and tapped the surface. It glowed briefly, confirming her identity. "Assignment, Helios," she whispered to no one. Observation phase began. No interference. The cube dimmed. The station lights flickered for a moment. Mira tilted her head, listening. A minor power fluctuation. Normal, common, unimportant. But something about it made her easy. She walked to the viewport and looked out at the black horizon. Somewhere out there, something was moving. Something most of the station did not know about. Something she was not supposed to think about, not until the right moment. She closed her eyes, breathed in slowly, let the tension fade. The next morning, she joined the flow of station personnel, heading toward their posts. No one paid her any attention. Even when she stood beside a pair of officers discussing border patrol patterns, they barely glanced her way. A few crew members smiled politely when they passed her. A few nodded. Some avoided eye contact. All normal reactions to someone new. One young mechanic slowed down as he walked past. He looked like he wanted to talk, but lost his nerve at the last second. Myra didn't mind. She didn't encourage conversation, but she didn't push it away either. Her second day followed much like the first. She completed tasks, learned the systems, watched quietly. She noticed that certain shipments were behind schedule. She noticed misfiled reports that hinted at minor sabotage or incompetence. She noticed that her coworkers were stretched thin, too tired to look closely at anything beyond their immediate workload. And she noticed that every time patrol drones were mentioned, someone in the room grew silent or uncomfortable. By midday, she had already gained a small reputation as the efficient new girl. Talented. Not brilliant. Just helpful. That was good. That was safe. During her break, she walked to the observation deck. Families and visitors often came here to look at the stars. Today, the room was almost empty except for a janitor polishing the glass and an older couple pointing at a passing cargo ship. Mira approached the far side and leaned against the railing. Through the transparent wall, she saw the station's patrol drones drifting by in slow arcs. Their lights blinked gently, but she also saw something else. A faint disturbance in the distance. Almost invisible. A ripple. Like a shadow passing behind the stars, she didn't move. She didn't narrow her eyes or react at all. But inside, her breath shifted. She stayed there for several minutes, waiting for the disturbance to appear again. It didn't. The stars looked calm once more. A soft voice spoke from behind her. "You're the new lieutenant, right?" Mira turned. A woman in medical uniform stood a few feet away. Friendly smile, gentle eyes. "Yes," Mira replied. "I'm Dr. Nira Solon. I saw your transfer order. You settling in okay?" Mira nodded. "Everyone has been welcoming." Dr. Solon's smile widened. "Helios is big, but you'll get used to it fast. If you ever need help finding your way or if the workload stresses you out, come by the med wing. We do more than patch up injuries." "Thank you," Mira said softly. She meant it. Kindness was not something she took lightly. The doctor left after a brief wave. Myra watched her go, then turned back to the stars. Her eyes drifted to the patrol drones again. She counted them, measured their spacing, calculated the timing of their path corrections. All normal, yet the unease did not fade. Later that evening, during her walk back to the residential ring, she passed a group of officers who didn't notice she was close enough to hear. "Another drone gone this morning," one whispered. "That makes 3, another replied. "Command says it's navigation errors." "Navigation errors don't erase an entire unit." Their voices dropped when they saw Mira approaching. They nodded politely and walked away. Mira continued forward without looking back. But her mind replayed their words. 3 drones lost. Not random. Not accidental. Something was testing the station's defenses. She reached her quarters, stepped inside, and locked the door. This time she didn't check the room. She already knew it was safe. Instead, she walked straight to the metal cube on her desk. She tapped it twice. "Update," she whispered. "Unusual drone activity near Helios. Possible contact." Continuing observation. The cube pulsed with soft light, acknowledging her message. Mira sat in silence for a long time. She wasn't nervous. She wasn't afraid, but she felt the slow shift of events. Like a tide turning, she had come to Helios to watch, to stay hidden, to appear normal, but the stars outside her windows suggested that this calm wouldn't last. And when the storm arrived, no one on the station would be ready, except her. The morning on. Orbital Station Helios began with the usual hum of engines and the soft vibration under the floors that reminded everyone. They lived inside a metal giant drifting through space. Mirakel moved quietly with the flow of crew members heading to their posts. She walked with a steady rhythm, her expression neutral, blending into the sea of uniforms around her. She liked it this way, invisible, unimportant, ordinary. But today, whispers followed her. She felt them before she heard them. A few glances, a few hushed tones. Something had shifted overnight. She reached the logistics office and found the door half open. Inside, two junior techs were huddled around a console, talking in low voices. They fell silent when she walked in. She greeted them with a polite nod and walked to her desk. Their eyes followed her. She could feel it when she logged into her terminal. She noticed the entire system felt slower. Unusual. She tapped a few commands. Delay another command. Another delay. The text behind her whispered again. Did you see it? One said, only for a second. The other whispered back, nervous. The system locked out right after. Mira typed a quiet override code that should not have worked on a basic logistics console. It worked anyway. Her terminal returned to normal speed. She didn't turn around. She didn't ask what they saw. Instead, she kept working. But it didn't take long for the news to reach her at mid-shift. The officer in charge called everyone into the main room. He looked tired and stressed, rubbing his forehead with 2 fingers. Listen up, he said. This morning, a classified data burst from Earth was accidentally routed through the Helios public network. It was visible for about 40 seconds before security sealed it. Mira's fingers tightened at her sides. The room filled with murmurs. What kind of data? Someone asked. The officer swallowed. High-level personnel files. Myra felt the shift. The air changed. Silence stretched around her. Someone in the back spoke. Whose files? The officer hesitated, his eyes flicking toward Mira. She knew before he opened his mouth. Lieutenant Mirakel, he said quietly. All eyes turned to her. Mira stood still, calm as the void beyond the station. Her face didn't move. Her heartbeat didn't speed up. But inside, she understood what this meant. Her quiet cover on Helios was broken. The officer cleared his throat. If anyone saw the file, you already know it was marked Black Tier. That level is above my clearance. Above your clearance. Above almost everyone on this station. Someone whispered, Black Tier. That's impossible, another voice said. That means special ops. Someone else added, or worse. The officer raised a hand. We don't know the details. We're waiting for Central to confirm how the leak happened. But they did know. Or at least, they thought they did. Mira could feel the fear, the curiosity, the confusion. She gave them nothing. After the meeting, she returned to her desk. The room was silent. No one came near her. No one asked her anything. And she did not offer any explanation. She worked until the end of her shift, finishing tasks with the same calm focus as always, but the whispers spread across the station faster than any order or announcement. By the time she walked into the main corridor, people were talking openly. I heard her record showed entire missions wiped. I heard she served on the front lines against apex threats. Cousin on Titan said, only assassins get Black Tier. She doesn't look like an assassin. Maybe that's the point. Mira kept walking. She didn't react to the stares. Not the curious ones. Not the scared ones. And not the angry ones. When she reached the lift, a young officer stepped inside with her. He kept glancing at her, fists tight at his sides. Finally, he asked, Is it true? Mira looked at him, her voice calm. I don't know what you saw. He swallowed hard. Your kill count. Mira said nothing. The lift doors opened. She stepped out without answering. The officer stayed inside, staring after her as the doors closed. Her quarters felt colder that evening. She sat on the edge of her bed, staring at the small metal cube on her desk. It glowed faintly, waiting for her to speak, but she didn't. Not yet. Something wasn't right. The leak wasn't accidental. Someone wanted her exposed. She stood and walked to the viewport. The stars outside seemed peaceful, calm, but Myra could sense the tension woven through the station. 3 missing drones. Strange. Shadows in the distance, and now the leak. The enemy was moving. The next morning when she stepped into the corridor, people moved out of her way without thinking. Some gave her small, nervous nods. Others refused to meet her eyes. A pair of security officers followed her discreetly for several minutes before pretending they hadn't. At the logistics office, the atmosphere was sharp and tense. The techs didn't whisper this time. They didn't look at her at all. They sat stiffly, working silently. Only the officer in charge approached her. He placed a tablet on her desk. "High Command sent instructions," he said softly. "They didn't give details, but they asked me to give this to you." Mira accepted the tablet. The officer stepped back quickly, as though afraid to stand too close. She tapped the screen. A single message appeared. Asterisk maintain position. Do not engage. Observe only. Asterisk her jaw tightened ever so. Slightly they still wanted her silent, still hidden, even after the leak. She set the tablet down and returned to work. But she felt the pressure building around her. The station wasn't calm anymore. Rumors traveled through every corridor. People speculated. Some admired her. Some feared her. Some hated her for bringing unknown danger. And all of them watched her. During her break, she walked to a vending unit. A group of engineers standing nearby fell silent the moment she approached. One of them forced a smile. "Lieutenant," he said, voice shaking. Mira nodded politely. "Good afternoon," he swallowed. You're not here on some secret mission, right?" His friends elbowed him sharply, eyes wide. Mira answered honestly. "I'm here for logistics." The engineer blinked. Unsure if she was telling the truth, her answer didn't calm him. Back at her quarters that evening, she finally tapped the metal cube. "New development," she spoke quietly. "File leak on Helios. Exposure unavoidable. Possible enemy involvement. Continuing observation per orders." The cube pulsed with light. Mira sat in silence. She didn't need sleep as early as humans usually did. Her body could ignore exhaustion for days. Her mind could remain sharp under stress. She closed her eyes and let her thoughts move freely. The leak, the drones, the tension, all connected. Someone wanted her identity known. Someone wanted the station off balance. Someone wanted her to react. But Mira did nothing. Not yet, the next day. When she walked into the logistics office, the young mechanic from earlier, the one who almost talked to her the first day, was waiting by her desk. He looked nervous, but determined. He whispered, "I think I saw something in your file before it locked." Mira sat down calmly. "What did you see?" He swallowed. "Numbers, I think. I think they were kills." Around them, people pretended not to listen. Mira spoke softly. "Files are often exaggerated." He shook his head. "Not like that." She held his gaze for a moment. He looked away first. Before she could respond, a loud alarm echoed through the station. Everyone froze. A red alert flashed across every screen. The officer in charge ran into the room. "Outer perimeter breach. Patrol drones destroyed near Sector 9. The room erupted in noise. Myra stood slowly, calmly. This was not an accident. The enemy wasn't just watching, they were coming, and the station was not prepared. Mira knew what High Command wanted her to do. Stay. Hidden. Observe. Do nothing. But she could. Already feel the weight of every life on. Helios, she stepped out of the office and into the Corridors' alarms blared. Her secret was out, and soon. The real danger would be too. Alarms echoed through orbital station Helios like a warning heartbeat, steady and urgent. The bright red emergency lights pulsed across the walls, bathing everyone in a harsh glow that made fear more visible. People rushed through the corridors in a storm of footsteps and confused voices. No one knew exactly what was happening, only that something had broken through the perimeter. Something powerful enough to destroy multiple patrol drones within minutes. Mira. Kale walked through the chaos with the same calm as always. Her expression did not change. Her steps stayed steady, but her eyes moved constantly, sharp and alert. Reading every detail around her, station crews sprinted past her. Sector 9 is gone. Someone shouted, "Drones didn't even send a distress ping." Another voice yelled, "This isn't normal. It can't be." People looked at Mira as they passed quick glances, nervous glances, fearful glances. They didn't know what she was. They knew she wasn't ordinary. She headed toward the main control center, though she had no orders to be there. Her clearance wouldn't get her inside the room, and High Command wanted her quiet. But she needed information. Fast, 2 security officers blocked her path. Lieutenant Kale. The taller one said, voice tense, "Control center is restricted during red alert." Mira looked at him calmly. "I only want the status report. We're still gathering details," the officer replied. "Please return to your assigned station." Assigned station. Logistics. Eiling reports about food shipments. While something destroyed drones like toys. Mira stepped back without argument. She knew forcing her way inside would only create more problems. And she didn't need the control center to understand what was happening. The enemy had tested the station quietly at first. Missing drones. Strange shadows in deep space. And now, a direct strike. This was not random. They knew she was here. She walked to the observation deck. People rushed past her in panic, but she kept moving with quiet purpose. When she reached the large windows overlooking the stars, the room was nearly empty. Only a single cadet stood there. Staring out with shaking hands, he turned when he heard her steps. His face went pale. "You're her," he whispered. "The one from the file." Mira didn't answer. The cadet swallowed. "I know people are scared of you." She remained silent. "But I'm more scared of what's out there right now," he admitted that. At least, was honest. Mira stepped beside him and looked through the glass. The vast black of space stretched endlessly. Stars glimmered. The curve of Helios itself was visible. Then she saw it. A ripple, faint but unmistakable. A distortion like invisible fabric bending under pressure. The same disturbance she had noticed days ago. Her voice became cold and quiet. "They are here." The cadet's breath caught. "Who?" Mira didn't answer. She didn't need to. A second later, the station shook. Not violently, but enough to make the cadet stumble. The windows vibrated. Warning messages flashed across the displays. Impact detected. Outer hull damage in progress. Mira turned quickly. "Cadet, get to the safe zone. What about you?" "I have work to do." She walked out without looking back. People were running everywhere. Crews shouted instructions. Security officers struggled to direct civilians. Nobody knew where the attack was strongest, and the command center hadn't yet sent out clear guidance. Mira moved through the chaos with silent precision, avoiding crowds, scanning emergency panels, reading structural responses. She followed the tremors in the floor like a trail. Sector 10. That was where the next hit would land. She walked faster as she entered the corridor leading to the cargo bay. She saw 2 young engineers trying desperately to seal a maintenance door. The metal frame sparked every time they tried to close it. Mira approached. "What's the problem?" The older engineer stared at her with wide eyes. "Power feedback loop. Door won't seal." Mira crouched beside the panel, her fingers moving with controlled speed. She pulled a fiber cable from the side, rerouted the charge, and locked the circuit in place. The door slid shut instantly. The engineers froze. "How did you—" One began. Mira stood. "Evacuate this corridor now." Obeyed without question, she continued deeper into Sector 10. The metal walls trembled under her feet. She could feel the pressure building outside. The hall that the enemy wasn't firing weapons. They were testing weak spots. She reached the cargo bay and found several crew members trapped behind fallen beams. Smoke filled the air. Panels flickered with dying light. Mira moved fast. Faster than anyone expected. She lifted a beam with strength she shouldn't have had. The trapped crew members scrambled free. One of them, coughing, stared at her. You're not just logistics, are you? Mira didn't answer. She only said, go. They ran. She continued forward until she reached an emergency viewport. She wiped the smoke from the glass with her sleeve, looked outside. The ripple was closer now. A shape emerged from it, faint at first, then more defined. Not a ship. Not exactly. Its edges were fluid, shifting like liquid metal. Its movements were too smooth, too silent. Her memory recognized it with cold. Certainty, they called themselves. Venkar, they didn't send messages. They didn't warn, they didn't negotiate, and they had faced Myra before. Her jaw tightened. Behind her, the emergency speakers turned on. Attention all personnel. Unknown hostile entity detected. All units prepare for containment protocol. This is not a drill. Crew members screamed in the distance. Mira exhaled slowly. She could no longer remain hidden. She tapped the metal cube in her pocket. It activated instantly. Situation escalating, she said quietly. They've found me. Cube pulsed with a soft tone. Await orders. Mira closed her hand around the cube. Orders. Always. Orders. Not this time. She whispered. She turned and sprinted through the corridor. Every step was faster than her calm walk earlier. She was no longer hiding her true speed. She passed officers, civilians, even security teams racing toward evacuation zones. People watched her with shock as she moved like a controlled storm. She reached the command center again. This time, 2 guards blocked her path. The taller one said, Lieutenant, you can't. Mira stepped forward. He raised his hand. Ma'am, I can't allow. She didn't touch him. Didn't threaten him. She simply said, in a voice that carried more weight than any order, your station is under attack by an enemy you have never faced. Let me in. The guard hesitated. The floor shook violently. A ceiling panel burst open, dropping sparks onto the floor. The guard stepped aside. Mira entered the control center. Chaos filled the room. Officers were shouting, screens displayed warnings, and the large tactical map flickered with unstable signals. When Myra stepped inside, the noise seemed too quiet. Not fully. Just enough for people to sense her presence. The commanding officer turned sharply. Lieutenant Kale. Why are you before he could finish? The tactical map flickered again. A new signal appeared. A distorted shape. Not a ship. Something worse. The officer stared. What is that? Mira spoke clearly. A Venkar infiltration vessel. Everyone froze. The officer turned to her, shocked. You know what this is? Mira nodded once. Then tell us, he demanded. What are we facing? She stepped forward, her calm voice steady. A species that does not fear you. A species that does not negotiate. They attack from the shadows. They test weaknesses. And they will keep pushing until this station falls. Silence filled the room. The officer swallowed. How do you know all this? Mira looked at him. Because I've fought them before. Her file leak had exposed the numbers, the missions, the kill count, but it had not explained the reason now. It didn't matter. The Venkar were here, and Helios had no idea how to stop them, but Mira did. The officer stared at her for several long seconds. Then, slowly, he said, Lieutenant Kale, what should we do? Myra turned to the tactical map. Her eyes sharpened. Prepare the station, she said. We have very little time. The control center buzzed with tension as Mira stepped forward, her calm presence cutting through the chaos more effectively than the alarms echoing across the station. Officers looked at her with a mixture of fear, hope, and confusion. No one truly knew who she was, but everyone felt the weight of her words. The Venkar vessel hovered outside the station like a silent shadow, barely detectable on sensors. Its surface rippled like liquid metal, shifting without rhythm, absorbing light instead of reflecting it. Even the tactical screen struggled to lock onto its shape. Every few seconds, its outline changed as if the ship were alive. Communications are jammed, an officer called out. "We can't get a clear reading." "Their signals keep bending around the hull." "Shields at 60%, another reported. "They're targeting our outer layers slowly." "Not enough to cause full breach yet?" "Why slowly?" Someone asked, panic in their voice. Mira answered without hesitation. "Because they enjoy watching fear build. They want you confused before they strike." Every head turned toward her. She approached the tactical map, her movements steady and sure. Her eyes studied the shifting patterns around the Venkar vessel. It was behaving exactly as she remembered. The commanding officer stood beside her. "Lieutenant, if you have experience with these attackers, we need to know how to defend against them." "Our standard protocols are failing?" Mira nodded. "Your shields won't hold against their phase attacks. We need to adjust the frequency before they shift their next strike." "Shift the frequency to what?" "None of our models match that thing. Use a rotating phase pattern, 2.7 seconds per cycle," Mira instructed. "They can destabilize a single frequency, but they struggle with rapid changes." The technician blinked. "How do you know that?" Mira didn't answer. She simply said, "Do it." The officer gave a firm nod. "Follow her instructions." The technician obeyed. A moment later, the shield readings stabilized slightly. Small victory, but not enough. Alarms blared again. "Impact on the lower hull?" Someone shouted. "They sent drones and known numbers incoming." Mira's eyes narrowed. "They're not drones. They're boarding organisms." A chill ran through the room. The commanding officer stared at her. "Organisms. They break apart from the main vessel and reform on contact with a target," Mira explained. "Once attached, they will search for structural weak points." "How do we stop them?" a junior officer asked. Mira pointed at the map. "Vent sections 3-2 through 4-1. Force them off before they latch deeper into the hull. It would expose part of the station to vacuum." The officer protested. "Better than letting them crawl into your oxygen pipes," Mira replied calmly. The officer swallowed and ordered the venting. The room trembled as outer doors opened. Automated systems pulled de-brained, strange metallic fragments into open space. A moment later, several small rippling shapes detached from the hull and were swept. Away, the tension in the room eased slightly. But Mira's face remained grim. "They're probing for me," she said quietly. The commanding officer looked at her sharply. "You're sure?" Mira nodded. "They don't attack randomly. They follow patterns. They're searching for a specific signature." A sudden explosion shook the center of the station. Lights flickered. Smoke rose from a corner panel. "Explosion in Sector 12. Someone yelled. Mira stepped forward. "That's close to the power core. They're getting serious." The commanding officer turned toward her. "Lieutenant Kale, I don't know who you really are, but right now, I need results. What do you suggest?" Mira took a deep breath. "You can't win this by reacting. You need to control the battle." She pointed at the rippling vessel outside. "They are waiting for fear to spread. But if we strike first, we break their rhythm." An officer gasped. "Strike. The station isn't built for offensive combat." "No," Mira agreed. "But I am." The room fell silent. The commanding officer stared at her. "Explain." Mira stepped into the center of the room. Everyone watched her. Some with curiosity, others with fear. "My file leak revealed numbers," she said, "but not what they meant." She paused. "I was part of Project Helion, a program designed to stop species like the Venkar." The commanding officer's eyes widened. "Project Helion was a myth." "Not a myth," she said. "A secret, a dangerous one. And I was one of their specialists," someone whispered. So the kill count was real. Myra continued. They know me. They fought me. And they never forget an opponent. Why were you sent here? An officer asked. Because High Command predicted the Venkar might return. They needed someone who understood them, stationed on Helios, without drawing attention. And the leak. Another whispered. Not from us, Mira answered. The Venkar triggered it. They wanted chaos. They wanted everyone unsettled when they arrived. But why expose you? The commanding officer asked. Mira looked at the vessel outside. Because they fear me. They want to make sure the station doubts me. Heavy silence filled the air. The commanding officer walked closer. What do you need? Mira didn't hesitate. Access to the tactical systems and a small team I can trust. You'll have both, he said. The officers watched as Mira moved to the main tactical station. The screen shifted to reveal detailed control layers most of the crew had never seen before. Myra's fingers moved quickly, changing defensive patterns, adjusting thermal readings, redirecting internal power. She worked with quiet confidence. As though she had done this 100 times, her mind was already 3 steps ahead as she worked. The Venkar vessel shifted again. The distortion around it sharpened. A warning flashed. Energy spike detected. Hostile attack imminent. Mira looked up. They're preparing a full strike. We have 90 seconds. Shields won't hold, an officer whispered. Shields won't matter, Mira replied. They're going to phase through them. Chaos surged through the room. The commanding officer shouted, What do we do? Mira's voice remained steady. We disrupt them before they fire. We need an electromagnetic burst strong enough to distort their phase ability. We don't have that capability, an engineer protested. Yes, we do, Mira said. In the engine core, there's a failsafe system meant to prevent collapse during hyperjumps. We reverse it. The room went silent. That could destabilize our power grid, the engineer whispered. It won't, Mira said. Not if we control the release exactly. I'll guide it. The commanding officer made the decision. Do it. Mira and a small team rushed out of the control center. They moved quickly through the corridors, dodging frightened civilians and damaged bulkheads. Officers cleared the path ahead of them. The energy in the station felt different now. Less panicked. More determined, Myra led them to the engine core. The room pulsed with intense light, machinery humming with deep vibrations. The engineer with her stared nervously at the control panel. If we get this wrong, we won't, Mira said. Follow my instructions. She guided him through sequences he had never seen before, codes not listed in any manual. Commands meant only for Project Hellion operatives. The core glowed brighter. The engineer swallowed. The charge is building too fast. Good, Mira said. Hold it steady. The Venkar vessel outside prepared its attack. The air inside Helios thinned for a moment as the enemy's energy field expanded. Mira's voice cut through the tension. 2, 1. Release. The burst fired outward. A blinding flash of electromagnetic energy surged from the station, expanding in every direction. The lights flickered, the floor vibrated, and static electricity crackled across every metal surface. The Venkar vessel convulsed. Its liquid-like form twisted violently as the energy wave collided with it. For the first time, creature ship shrieked, a soundless vibration felt through the bones. On the tactical screens, its shape became unstable. Mira watched, expression hard. Now they know we're not weak. The vessel retreated slightly, wounded, a small victory. But Mira knew the battle was far from over. The engineer stared at her. What now? Mira looked at the dark space outside the viewport. They'll attack again, she said softly. Harder this time. She stepped back from the engine core, and when they do, I'll be waiting. The lights across Helios Station flickered as emergency power rerouted through damaged circuits. Alarms echoed through the long metal corridors, rising and falling like a heartbeat in panic. Officers ran in every direction, some shouting updates, others helping civilians reach safety zones. The atmosphere was thick with fear, tension, and something else. Sensipation. Everyone sensed it. The final strike was coming. Mira walked through the chaos with steady steps, her expression sharp and focused. Every eye followed her, some with worry, some with hope, and some with awe. The truth of her past had spread across the station like a storm. People whispered her name now with a mixture of respect and fear. She did not let it distract her. She had faced worse than whispers. The Venkar vessel still lurked outside the station. It was no longer calm or controlled. Its liquid-like form quivered violently, struggling to stabilize after the electromagnetic burst she had unleashed. But it was far from defeated. In fact, a wounded Venkar was always more dangerous. Inside the control center, commanding officer turned as Mira entered. "We've been trying to track their patterns, but everything keeps shifting. They're preparing something big." Mira nodded. "They'll try to break through our core defenses. They want the station, and they want me." A junior officer spoke nervously. "Why you? What do they gain?" Mira looked at the swirling shadow on the screen. "The Venkar study their enemies. They adapt. If they destroy me, they erase a threat that has hunted them for years." The room fell silent. The commanding officer stepped closer. "We can't let them reach you. What's our next move?" Mira approached the central tactical display. The burst hurt them, but not enough. Their phase matrix is still functional. If they get close again, they'll phase through our shields and attach directly to the hull. And then, someone whispered, then they'll tear this station apart from the inside. Fear spread across the faces in the room, but Mira continued calmly. "We need to finish this before they get that chance." "How?" the commanding officer asked. Myra tapped a spot on the holographic. "Display a weak point in the Venkar vessel's shifting form. We target their core nexus. It's unstable right now. A direct strike would break their entire structure." The officer frowned. "But our weapons can't lock onto them. They phase too quickly." "They do," Mira agreed, "unless someone gets close enough to make the shot manually." Several officers froze. "You mean Eva outside the station?" one asked. "In the middle of battle?" Mira nodded. "But that's suicide." Another shouted. "Not if I time it right," Mira said. The commanding officer stared at her for a long moment. "You've done this before," as Myra admitted. "More times than I can count? And you came back every time?" She shook her head slightly. "No. Some missions were meant to be last missions, but I survived anyway." A strange silence followed. The weight of her past lingered in the air. Finally, the commanding officer straightened. "If you're going out there, you won't go alone. I'm sending 2 of my best to support you." Mira opened her mouth to protest, but he raised a hand. "You said it yourself, the Venkar adapt. You shouldn't be without backup." After a moment, Mira nodded. "Fine. But they stick to my instructions, exactly." 2 officers stepped forward, Rian and Tessa, both skilled in EVA combat and known for their quick reactions. They saluted her respectfully. "We're with you," Rian said. Mira led them to the armory. The room glowed with emergency red lighting, reflecting off the metal racks filled with weapons and reinforced suits. She selected a sleek, black EVA suit designed for special operations. The suit was familiar, too familiar. It reminded her of her days before she fled Project Helion. Rian examined the pulse rifles on the wall. "These won't do much against the Venkar." Mira grabbed a compact device from a locked compartment. "We're not using rifles." Tessa leaned closer. "What is that?" "A Helion disruptor," Mira explained. "Short range. Devastating impact. It destabilizes energy matrices." Rian looked uneasy. "Sounds dangerous." "It is," Mira said simply. "But it's our only shot." They geared up and headed for the airlock. The hallway vibrated as another shockwave hit the station. The Venkar were testing the shields again. Inside the airlock chamber, the automated voice announced, "EVA sequence beginning. Stand by." Mira took a deep breath as her helmet sealed with a soft hiss. "This is where everything ends," she said quietly. Rian glanced at her. "Ends or begins again?" The airlock doors opened. A vast sheet of stars stretched before them, cold and endless. The Venkar vessel loomed like a twisting shadow, its liquid surface rippling with energy. The station's damaged hull glowed faintly around them. Mira stepped forward. Launching herself into open space, Rian and Tessa followed. The three drifted silently through the vacuum, small thrusters guiding their movements. The Venkar vessel shifted as it sensed them. Its surface grew spikes and ridges signs of agitation. Mira activated her comm. Stay close. Move when I move. Don't get separated. They approached a trembling section of the enemy's hull. Mira could feel the vessel reacting to her presence as if it remembered her. A sharp pulse of energy shot toward them. Tessa. Left. Mira shouted. They dodged the blast. The glow illuminated their suits as they drifted between waves of light. Rian cursed. They're targeting us. Good, Mira said. That means we're close. The vessel opened, revealing a swirling, unstable core deep within. Mira raised the disruptor. Rian's voice trembled. Is that alive? The Venkar grow their ships, Mira explained. Everything is connected.